Thanks, Matt, for inviting me here today. As you said, my name is Carol McDonnell. I work with the SBDC, and I've been there about 13 and a half years working with entrepreneurs, helping them grow their businesses, and also with people who are interested in starting businesses. So that's what we do. So when he asked me to come and talk today, I thought I'd do a little presentation on just the whole topic of, is entrepreneurship for you, to try to just help you understand a little bit more about, what it's about. Before I do that, can I just go around and get each of you to briefly, your name and just maybe a little something about yourself? And especially if you're thinking of that starting a business might be something you might someday want to do. Okay, let's start.
My name is Vance Cup. I'm from South Georgia, Moultrie, Georgia. And my dad owns a small business, drywall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's just a little small business.
Yeah.
It's Southwest Georgia, really. So, I wouldn't mind starting small business.
Okay, great. Okay, good. And then,
my name is Alexander Ogletree. I think I want to start a business eventually one day.
yeah,
I want to open like my own recreation department.
recreation department.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm working with a client who is starting a, we've had somebody do gymnastics studios and things like that. So, yeah, good. Okay, welcome. And then your name?
My name is Trey Barrow, former player here, actually in the process of starting my own small business.
Oh, you are already? Yeah, what kind is it?
That's a restaurant,
A restaurant. Where is it?
Jefferson.
Oh, in Jefferson, yeah.
It's not Tex-Mex somewhere.
That's all right, man.
Yeah.
Competition
Okay.
is good.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Sharper.
So you're already, maybe you're beyond my presentation today, but you might have some interesting observations to throw in. I've got some of your experiences as we go along. And by the way, I love questions, so feel free at any time. And then last but not least,
Trevor's Bell.
what was it? I'm sorry.
Trevor's Bell.
Trevor's?
And I'm the nephew, I'm playing at TCU.
Oh.
So I'm here to get into the same business and learn more information about it.
Okay, great. Okay, well, good. So, is entrepreneurship for you? It might sound during this presentation that I'm trying to talk you out of it. But what I really want to do is try to just give you a realistic picture of, what's involved and some of the things you need to think about. And, we have a couple of classes for people who are starting businesses. One's called How to Start a Business, of all things. Another one is How to Write a Business Plan, because we think that's really important to have. And each of those is like 3 hours long. So I'm zipping through some things in 20 minutes or so here today. So we're doing the real high level overview. Okay. All right. So what is it all about, owning your own business? Controlling your own future. Common characteristics: hard work, long hours. I hear that you guys, in your career in football, you're used to that, so it sounds like you might have that going already. Sometimes good pay. Dave can tell you more about that. And then I brought a little quiz, if we have time at the end, called the E-test, the entrepreneur test. Really, it's not, there's no right or wrong answer, but it's not going to be hard. So don't get rid of it. But anyway, so to kind of give you some more ideas of, to help you assess yourself and start thinking about, gee, is this really for me? Okay, that was the slide. So, again, long hours. We have a little saying that said, people like to start businesses and be entrepreneurs so they can work 60 to 80 hours a week for themselves, so they don't have to work 40 for somebody else. So, and a lot of times it's even longer than that, right?
A lot of times.
A lot of times.
All the time.
Yes, definitely. You never turn it off. You get the profit, but you also have all of the risk and all of the work. You have to pretty much be able to figure things out for yourself. I mean, there's help out there. We're there. We help a lot of our clients with questions they have and bouncing ideas. And there's other business owners. They're often, as long as they're not competitors, they're often very willing to help other business owners is what I've found in my experience. You're the boss. So if you like being the boss and being in charge all the time, then this could be a good thing for you. And, it's your money, that you're putting into this, and it's your call. Or you get to or have to make the decisions. Okay? So, managing money. This is an area that I find a lot of people, they jump into business because there's something that they like to do or they're really good at, but then they say, oh, I think I'll go into business. And then they find there's so much more involved than just doing, like for example, with your, the drywall. Like, oh yeah, I could be the best drywaller in the world, but once I start a business, then I'm a businessman who happens to hang drywall and not what I used to be as much. So managing money is a huge part of it. So think about yourself now. Are you pretty good at that? Are you, and by the way, I forgot to show you what was in the packet. I'm sorry, I don't think you said. I have the handouts. The PowerPoints are there, so you don't have to write stuff down. There's a place to take notes if you need to. Okay. Organizing the work, your employees and yours. You've got to be the one who wakes up and figures out what needs to be done every single day. So, planning, again, this is the planning ahead of time. You're the leader of this business, and the leader, big part of being a leader is the vision. Somebody who can see the big picture and think ahead. But also, especially in the beginning, you have to be managing all the day-to-day little things, day-to-day things as well. So, carrying out your plan and changing the plan. Because, sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, things are changing. So you have to be, adjusting probably constantly and looking at the environment and trying to figure out how am I going to make this a success, given the way things are now and the way things look like they're going to be down the road. So, I think I said that 3 times already. Be in charge all the time. So, now, what do we have? You know where you're going. Make it happen when things are hard, and I can guarantee, and I think David can attest to tell you this too, it will be hard. I have not worked with any entrepreneurs, people who have started their business that didn't go through some hard times. Now, I don't want to sound negative about it all because, there are good times too, and it can work out and be really fun and profitable and, be a really nice way to make a living. But, you've got to just be prepared for the hard part. So, the first thing you need to think about when you start a business are what are your goals? What do you want out of it? Fame. You want to, start the next, Facebook, Google, whatever, you want to get rich. You just want to be happy. You just want to, again, be able to have some flexibility in your life. I've had clients who had really high-paying jobs, corporate jobs, and really high-paying, and they just said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want some flexibility in my life. I want to be able to spend some time with my kids and go to their football games or basketball games or whatever. And, they might do that in the middle of the day, but then they're going to be working really late at night to take care of the business. But you would have, you have that kind of flexibility. And, just wanting to be your own boss. Now, that is an interesting thing because you say, well, I want to be my own boss. I don't want any bosses. But keep in mind, when you're in business, you've got lots of bosses. Who do you think your bosses might be in business?
Government for one. I guess a government for one.
The government, yeah. Definitely, you got that going. Yeah, well, who else would be your boss?
Patrons.
Your patrons, yeah, your customers. I mean, you got tons, hopefully you'll have lots of bosses there. And then who else might be your boss? Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking also of your vendors, people you buy stuff from, they could be too. So, yeah, so being your own boss, yeah, you are, kind of. So keep that in mind. And then, again, changing when you have to, sticking it out when you don't, and learning the difference. So, critical success factors. And I think I've been harping on this a lot already, but you've got to be willing to sacrifice. And you have to be able to deal with people of all kinds. Again, you're going to be dealing with your vendors, your landlord, your customers. I mean, customers, they can be great customers, or they could be difficult customers. You can have all kinds. You have to be, of course, employees. Employees seem to be one of the biggest issues that a lot of my clients have to deal with, finding good employees and knowing how to manage them and keep them if they are good, and knowing what to do when they're not performing, when they're not good. So being a strong leader is a big part of that. Have to develop organizational skills. You've got to be really well organized. Common sense. Be able to run things. Now, having some business-related experience. Do any of you, okay, so it sounds like you kind of grew up with your dad's business, so you do, and then, oh gosh, you know what, this is bad. My mind's gone. I only had 4 names to remember, and I can't remember.
Two of them are Trey.
Oh, two of them are
Trey.
Trey. Okay, maybe that's why I'm confused. Okay, so Trey. I taught a class once, and there were 5 Carols in it. And my name is Carol, and so I knew if I called some woman Carol, I had a pretty good chance of getting it right. So Trey, did you have some experience in the restaurant business?
No.
No? So how did you get involved in it? I'm just real curious about that.
It was, well, in the area in which I live, it was due to the lack of restaurants and lack of a place to go eat with my family.
Right, okay.
So I found where I believe that there is a niche for it.
Right,
I
okay.
decided to.
Yeah, and that's a big part of, starting a business, finding a need. I mean, you have to find a need and fill it. There's got to be a need, something customers are going to value and want. So, and anybody else have any kind of business experience?
I have business experience, but not
Restaurant.
Not restaurant. Oh, okay. Well, good. Yeah, any kind helps. Having experience in this specific business really helps.
Right.
So, and I tell clients a lot of times who are thinking of starting a business, they've never worked in or don't have experience, go get a job working in that kind of business, see how you like it. I had one person do that, and I ran into him like months later, and I was out in the grocery store or something, and he goes, oh, I took your class, and the best thing I got out of it was when you told me to go get a job in this business, and I did, and so I hated it. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess that was a good outcome. So, but yeah, do that. I mean, if you really are serious and you want to find out more, a lot of people do that. Be optimistic. Definitely, there are times you need it. And also, when you have a business, somebody has to be the salesperson. I have a lot of clients that start businesses and they have no sales experience and they don't like to do that. But if you can't, and you can't hire somebody to do it for you, that could be a problem. And one of the characteristics of good salespeople is they are very high in optimism. It's from just some things that I have read. So, and then you have to have people around you that you can count on. So maybe your family, and your family, your spouse, your family they have to be on board with you. Because again, you're going to be like, oh, honey, I got to stay late tonight because I got to go take care of whatever. So that happens a lot. So any questions so far? Okay. Have I talked you out of it yet? No? Okay. All right. So You need to figure out the market feasibility, what we call the market feasibility. You know, who's your customer? Where's your customer? How do I get my word to them? Do they value what I have to sell? Who are your competitors? How do you compare? How much do you expect to sell and what will it cost? These are all the real basic things that you need to start looking into for any kind of business that you want to start. Would you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm kind of like sort of zipping through all this because I don't want to take up too much more of his time. So you can't know enough about two things relating to your business. Your customer, you have to just know everything about them. So who they are, you know, what their age is, what their race, their sex, their income level, their interests. Where are they? Where do they live? Where do they work? Where do they travel? How do they get information? You know, if you're selling, you know, if you're selling, I'll give you a silly example, purple sparkly shoelaces to 9-year-old girls, are you going to advertise in the local newspaper for your product? I don't think so, you know. So you've got to think about, you know, what their interests are and how they get their information. So probably some social media thing. I don't know if they're tweeting these days or if they've moved on to something else, you know. So, but you've got to match up, you know, your customer with, you know, so you have to really know about them. The other thing that group you need to know as much as possible about is your competition. You can't know enough about them either. Now, play by the rules. We talked about the government. Yep, you got lots of regulations and taxes and things. Could be the federal, the local, you know, the Georgia, the local, your county, the city, and even your neighbors if you live in a place. And I had a client that wanted to early on. Young guy, he wanted to start an amplifier repair business, you know, for musicians, and he lived in an apartment, and he went to the planning and zoning to get, you know, permission to have this type of business in this location. And what do you think they told him? It was not a good business for, you know, having neighbors and stuff, testing those amplifiers out. So those things. Now I'm going to, you know, I'm not going to go through all this, but you can read it later. And then we just talked about that. So where do you get information? The IRS.gov. You guys are lucky. There's one good thing. The internet. I mean, there is so much information right at your fingertips. Any day, any time of day, 24/7. You know, you can find out all kinds of stuff. And we're the SBDC. There's our contact information. And so what do you do, Bruce? What do you do next? Ask lots of questions, talk to your family. If you're going to need to get money, a loan, you got to have good credit score. I mean, even though it's a business, people think, oh, well, it's a business. My personal credit doesn't count. It counts. You're going to need to save money because lenders are going to want you to put what they call an equity injection, you know, put money in there. They want you to have skin in the game. They're not going to take all the risk. They want, you know, I have clients that say, well, I don't want to, you know, risk anything, you know, why should I have to? It's like, why shouldn't you have to? You know, you expect the bank to lend them all of somebody else's money and you won't even do that? Yeah, so not very realistic. And again, I mentioned our other classes. Learn as much as you can about business. There's all kinds of books and classes out there. You know, learn about business too. And now, you're going to hear all this stuff about free money and grants. Don't believe it. Okay, in my experience for, you know, kinds of businesses we would be starting, don't count on it. Maybe, you know, for nonprofits, there might be, but in certain things, and never pay anybody for information about free money. We see that happen. And then you need a plan. First, you focus. When you start writing something down, it starts really coming into focus. You know, a lot of times people have all these ideas and thoughts in their head, but the minute you sit down and write it, then it starts taking shape. It has your commitment. Brings you down to reality. You know, you might realize when you start working the numbers and stuff, maybe you're not going to make $1 million in the first year. And gives you benchmarks, so you have a plan. Then once you start the business, you can go back and look at it and say, hey, how am I doing? And then required by banks and investors. So, and what did I miss down here? okay, this, we talked about that, don't forget. This is the first step, and never hesitate to ask for help, because it is help out there, okay? Any questions? I heard you guys were talking through. Okay,
So like, do y'all just offer classes? That's what.
we do have classes, but we also, well, our main thing that we do is we offer free one-on-one consulting to people who are either, in the process of starting businesses, or, like I said, about 85% of our clients are already in business, and so they just need help. Oh, I'm hiring my first employee, what do I do? Or, I want to grow, or I want to expand, and I need a loan to build a new building, so we help them pull all the information they need to go to the bank. Or, they just want to set up budgets. We do something called strategic planning with some of our growing existing businesses, where it's a forward-looking plan to help them, plan for the future a little bit more, and identify areas that they can improve and do better. But yeah, so the consulting is free. The classes we do charge, a small fee for. So.
And we're part of the SBA.
We are partially funded by the SBA. So the Small Business Administration gives us about half of our funds, and then I am faculty of UGA. So we're state employees, so we get our funding about half from there too. Yeah.
I was doing most of my research and ran my business plan through the SBA template.
Okay,
per se.
yeah.
And then when it came time to set up a meeting for the SBDC, I was going to have to go all the way to Atlanta, and so I didn't even know.
No,
you
yeah,
already
okay,
did.
yeah.
So it wasn't on the
And I
website
should,
or anything.
I'll take one more minute. just to
Sure,
tell
take
you
your
this.
time.
Okay, this is our brochure for the SBDC. We have 17 offices all over the state. So on this page, there's the list of all the offices and their local phone number. Now, if you're in Jefferson, that's my county. That's where my office, I'm the area director of the Athens office. So we serve 12 counties. We serve Clark County and 11 surrounding counties, including, that's Jackson County, right? So, anyway, yeah, well, good. No, we're right here. So you would just need to call our office, and and when people are starting businesses, we really like them to take some class, like if not our class, sounds like you're already a little further along, but have a draft of your business plan. It can be very, very, very rough to give us ahead of time, because it really kind of tells us whether you're really serious or not. And there's only about 3 of us in the office and 12 counties, and we're free. And so we need to have some sort of screening mechanism. So if you've got a rough draft of a plan, yeah, call our office and set up an appointment. We'd love to work with you. And then, so that's that. We have a newsletter there, and I put in, this is from the SBA, and this talks about, all kinds of resources for starting businesses, and, different loan programs. And then I put in here two Georgia Trend magazines, and there are all kinds of articles about our clients that we've worked with around the state. I think it's in this one. One of my clients is in here. Her name's Amanda Rodriguez. I helped her start Metropolis. It's a doggy daycare. They call it a doggy daycare spa and boutique. She was one of my first clients, almost 13 years ago or so. And then we helped her get a small loan to start, and then 5 years later, she got a big loan to build her first location. Then we worked again last year, a year ago, to get a loan, another bigger loan to build her second location. So anyway, so there's a little bit about her in there. So this will give you some ideas of different businesses and how they've gotten different kinds of help. So hopefully you'll find that useful. And yeah, so any other questions? All right. So well, thank you.
Yeah, this is great. I'm David Weeks, and thank you, Carol, for that. Matt wanted me to come in and tell you a little bit about myself and then answer any questions. But I tell you, I feel like I'm in y'all's shoes after listening to her right there. It's fantastic. I was telling her beforehand, I've been my own business owner now, gosh, for almost 12 years in the restaurant business. So we probably need to talk after this.
Definitely.
But I told her, I said I would love to sit in a class to see what the teachers are teaching to see if it really matches up to the real world. And everything that she put up there is real world stuff. As a matter of fact, the quiz that she was taking, I'll tell you this, I took it myself in my head, I scored 100 on it. So I guess I'm in the right business.
You must be good, yeah.
But anyway, to tell you a little bit about myself, I've always been an entrepreneur. When I was little, 9, 10, 11 years old, I had a lawnmower that I would push all up and down the neighborhood cutting grass for $10, $20 a yard. I wasn't a smart entrepreneur because it didn't matter what size the yard was. I charged $15 and it might take me 3 hours and then go cut another one for 30 minutes and charge the same. So I knew right away I wasn't that smart. But anyway, I played football at Georgia. Graduated in '95. I was an offensive lineman back in those days. And then bounced around to a couple different corporate jobs, but I always knew I wanted to own my own business. Even when I was coming out of college and I took all those tests, the Myers-Briggs and all that, it said, you probably are going to be best suited to be your own boss and not go work for somebody else. And so I knew that, I wanted to, for everything that she said, to be your own boss, to have the flexibility to work hard, work long hours, which football and sports teaches you. When I wasn't cutting grass, whatever season it was, that's what I was playing. And then playing at Georgia, it's so structured that it does give you a very good, solid foundation to go off and have the self-discipline to go off and start something on your own. But like I said, I wasn't that smart, so I knew I couldn't start my own business like your dad's drywall business or starting your own restaurant from scratch, having that idea. My hat's off to you. I've actually started two that weren't franchises and failed miserably. So, but we can talk about that later. So I knew I wanted to go the franchise route. I wanted to buy into somebody's idea, but then have it be my own business and run it that way. And so it was around 2001 where I really started getting serious, and I looked at every different franchise concept under the sun there was. I looked at restaurants, but I also looked at shoe stores, printing presses. I think there's a stat, and you probably know it, that there's in the high 70 or 80% of small businesses in America are actually franchise businesses.
Yeah,
Is that true?
I'm not sure about that. But
It may be lower. I don't know, but
I mean, there's a lot.
There's a lot
It's a
of-
good way of starting a business. Yeah.
it is, especially in the restaurant business because I've heard that 80 or 85% of restaurants that start fail.
Wow.
Right,
Yeah,
but if
and that
you're in
one
a
I have
franchise,
heard.
it's a little bit lower. So anyway, I'm looking around at all these different franchises trying to figure out what I want to do, and I talked to a lot of different people that were their own business owners about what motivated them and whatnot, why they did it. I talked to a friend of mine who, back in those days, Zaxby's had just started franchising, and he had a couple Zaxby's. I said, well, what advice would you give me if I wanted to get into the restaurant business? He said, David, I'm not in the restaurant business. The restaurant business scares people because of the high failure rate and the hard hours that you have to put into it. He said, I don't see it that way. I'm just having all my friends over every day for lunch and dinner. And so I'm just entertaining them. And that's when the aha moment for me hit, because that's what my wife and I enjoyed doing, was cooking out on the back deck on the weekends and having friends over and enjoying good food and just good fellowship. So to this day, that's still the philosophy I take in the restaurant business. And my model is to have a small footprint in the Athens, Oconee area, Barrow County and Walton County, and put as many quality concepts in that small footprint as possible. So when I started off, I had to figure out what I wanted to do, and Barbaritos had opened in downtown Athens, I think in 2001. And so I got to know the guy who started it. I asked him, I said, are you interested in franchising this because I love the food? He said, yeah, but he was working 80 hours a week trying to get his business off the ground. He said, I'm not ready for that yet, but when I am, I'll call you. 18 months later, he called me, and the rest is history. But starting off, I didn't have any money. I didn't have a big nest egg. I did have a house, and I had a wife, and I had a 1-year-old son. So I had to go to the bank with my little business plan, and I went to every bank in town in Athens. With my business plan, I get all dressed up in my coat and tie, so I looked official, and every single bank told me no except for one. And you know, when I started to have skin in the game, not only did I have to put my house up as collateral, I didn't tell my wife this at the time, but I pretty much put her up for collateral and my son, that if I failed, they were going to come get them, and they'd be having to live with the bankers. But, you know, it's funny to go back and look. I've now got several different banking relationships. I also have done SBA as well, too. But I asked the first banker, his name was John, and it was at Athens First. I said, now that I know a little bit about how all this works, and I know the financials and the risks and what the bankers are looking at, because that's the other thing. When you're in business for yourself, you always have to put yourself in the other person's shoes, whether it be your vendors, your customers, your employees, or your banking relationships. And you got to understand how their business works. And so once I figured out how the banking business worked, I went to John and said, man, how were you able to get me this loan? And he said, well, you know, I knew who you were. I kind of followed you. We'd gone to college together, although we didn't really know each other. He said, but I knew enough about you to know that if you defaulted on this loan and it failed, that you would go out and get 3 more jobs to pay us back. You would default. I mean, your business might fail, but you would pay us back. So it was more of a character loan there. So I was very fortunate in that regard. But so started off, opened our first bar burritos, and it was December 17th, 2003. But I decided to make the jump in 2001. So it took a lot of work to get the first one open. And so now we have 3 Dunkin' Donuts. I'm opening our 3rd bar burritos. I opened our 3rd Dunkin' Donuts October 3rd of this year. I'm about to open a bar burritos tomorrow in Bethlehem, Georgia, right there, 316 and 81.
Oh, okay.
We opened the Dunkin' Donuts
Yeah.
October 3rd. We're open bar burritos. And I also have Miracle Pasta, so, you know. Is it really? Good, come see us, man. Doesn't have to. But I just love it. Everything I do, every day for me is a Friday. I love being around people. I love serving people, which is why I'm in the restaurant business. You have to have a servant's heart to be in the restaurant business. So that's a little bit about my story. You know, I guess at this point we'll answer any questions you guys might have. I'm an open book. I love talking to people who want to be an entrepreneur or have the guts or the backbone to get out there and do it on your own. Because I'll tell you this quick story too. When I was working pharmaceutical sales, which I think Matt or one of you always talk about, if you know, you talk about having a high income paying job with a pension, a company car, great health plan, a great bonus structure, to go to nothing. I knew that I was going to be able to succeed, but when I convinced my wife that this was a good idea to go from all of this to having nothing.
That's what I was talking about when I said you need your support.
Right.
That's exactly what I was
Right.
talking
She goes,
about.
why do you want to do this? I said, well, I'll be a lot happier. And there was one guy who was a pharmaceutical sales rep, and he was about 10 years older than me, and we got to know each other. And we were having dinner with him one time, and we were talking about your goals and aspirations, and he said, I can't wait for 10 more years, and then I can retire and go be a ski instructor in Boone, North Carolina. And he didn't realize it, but it made a huge impact on me, because I told my wife on the ride home, I said, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy that has 10 years out in the future. Man, if I can just get there, then I can be happy. I never want to be that guy. And so I was willing to risk giving it all up to just go chase your dream and be happy. I mean, a lot of us, we already kind of chased our dream with football and everything, and so you just continue to carry it on throughout your life. And so that's a little bit about my story, and I will answer any question there is, even if I talk to a lot of different groups, and I get all sorts of questions. So anything's on the table, and Miss Carol can help back me up on anything too there.
You think, I guess like my question is, so like did you like just quit your first job and then just went and started trying to make your own business? You know what I'm saying? Like did you like stay at your job, build some income?
Right,
And then,
I did. I stayed at my job. So pharmaceutical sales, there's a lot of downtime.
Right.
So in my downtime, I filled it with studying and trying to figure out what I want to do and trying to make those contacts. And so when I opened our bar burritos, I was up front with them. I said, hey, it's time for me to go start my own business. And they said, well, why don't you just, the restaurant business will fail. Why don't you just, we're going to give you your 4 weeks vacation up front. Why don't you just, I said, guys, look, I'm not coming back. And so I did ride it all the way up to the very end. But I was upfront with them. They knew what I was doing, and they knew that I was, you always want to, relationships are the key to life, especially if you're going to own your own business. And your reputation, y'all have heard it before, it takes years to build and seconds to destroy. It's true if you're going to be your own boss. You always want to do, the litmus test I tell all of our managers and everybody I come in contact with is do the right thing. If you do the right thing, everything else takes care of itself.
You know, I was going to make a comment on, about, that was a good question about did he just quit and start the business? Because, that's a way to do it, and it works. A lot of people will do what you call keep their day job while they're building the business.
Right.
And then it gets to a point where it's like, okay, it's time. I can do this full time. And that's a good way to do it. It just, it just depends on each individual situation.
Right.
So.
And I knew that, especially in the restaurant business, you have to be there. You have to touch it. You have to be the one leading by example. I knew that I couldn't hang on to it. I wasn't going to, because I was borrowing money from the bank. I wasn't going to have one foot in the corporate world and another foot in the owning your own business world, because I felt like I would fail. I felt like that'd be a recipe for failure. Whereas I knew that if I put both feet into the fire, my chances of success were going to be greater.
What would you say some of your biggest challenges are? Like as far as having, you have at least what, 6?
Right. I think, yeah, somewhere.
Yeah, 6 or 7.
Starting off, the biggest challenge, and you were talking about your family. I was 30 years old, and my son was a year and 14 months. And the first year that I opened my restaurant, I was there from 6:30 or 7 in the morning to 11 or 12 at night every day for a full year. And that was hard. My wife's fantastic, though. She knew what she was getting into. The hardest part was my son. He lost his dad for a year. And when I finally was able to come home at night, he wouldn't let me put him to bed, because he was used to mama doing it all the time. And looking back, that was very difficult, but it was a sacrifice that we had to make. My problems now have changed a lot from back in the early days. Now it's just, there's fires that pop up all the time. But employees are generally your biggest issue. When my second son, Whit, was born, my wife and I were going to the hospital, and the guy that was running the show called me and said, the grill guy didn't show up today. So I had to say, honey, hold on just a second. Those contractions are only, 15 minutes apart. We're fine. I need to go handle this real quick. And so I went in. I went in. I got the story. He had gone out and gotten drunk the night before, and he was hungover, and I knew where he stayed. And so I got my truck. I drove to his house. I went in his bedroom, got him up, and I said, I don't care how hungover you are, I'm not missing the birth of my son today. So you are getting in there. And so I went and got him, and was able to see my son born. But, it's
when I
just,
said employees are the biggest
are.
problem, I had no idea.
But they're also some of my greatest reward, too. I've been able to grow our business not because of me, because of them. And that's the only way I grow, is if I know I have a management team that can go in and do it. Because I don't want to go back to those days of being in the restaurant from 7 in the morning to 11 at night. Now, my work day sometimes is that, but I'm not in there prepping, cleaning, and doing all that stuff. I mean, my work day, I coach my son's football teams, and so I go coach, and I'm not working, but then when they go to bed, the computer comes back out and we're working. So it's definitely not 9 to 5, which is what I like, but I do have that flexibility to do things with my boys and my kids as they grow up.
But that's a good point about your employees when you do have a business are your biggest asset. And
Right.
finding good ones and being able to keep them and help them grow, yeah, that's.
We have a lot of
that's
sayings when it comes to employees. Broom them or groom is one of them. I'm always talking about managers. Either broom them or groom them. I mean, if it's not somebody that we can groom, why are they here? Now, sometimes, we have employees that, they might be a college student just working their way through college, and all they want to be is a certain, an employee that works 3 or 4 shifts a week is a grill guy or a cashier. That's fine. Yeah, but when you come in and do it, you better be the best grill guy or cashier there is. And so we talk a lot about our standards. I do so much of how I run my business. I learned on the football field. It's a team. It's, I tell our guys all the time, we don't have a chain of command in our business. Yeah, I am the boss, and I ultimately make all the calls, but our managers make calls too. So I liken it to, I'm the head coach, and my managers are my coordinators. And they're allowed to go off and make calls and all that. And if they make a mistake, it's no big deal. Let's figure it out. How can we do it better next time? A lot of times they'll figure out ways to do it better than what I had thought of. And that's another thing that I learned, is that when I started giving up some of the control and knowing that to get from point A to point B, there's a lot of different routes you can take. And some of them might be better than others. Some of them, for that particular restaurant or person might work better for them. It's okay, as long as the same standards being met. So, that's really how I view my job now, is as the head coach, making sure we motivate, making sure that the standards are high, making sure that we don't put up with the nonsense that goes on, because there is a lot of nonsense, especially in the restaurant business.
When you began, you sort of alluded to it, you began as a chain or a franchise.
Right.
But were you in it by yourself, or was the
Good question. I was in it by myself. So I bought the Barbaritos idea, but they don't back me.
right?
Right.
So
So
this was his first one on this.
that was his first one. And the good thing about that, so I looked at Zaxby's, I looked at McDonald's. I didn't have a lot of money. I couldn't invest. I couldn't go to the bank and get it. But he needed me as much as I needed him, because he needed to have somebody crazy enough to be the first franchisee on an unproven concept. So I was able to get into it relatively inexpensive compared to what it would be today to get into it. So I was lucky to some extent. But no, if you fail in the franchise business, it's almost doubly tough, because you sign a franchise agreement for 10 years. So if I start and I fail after 18 months, I'm still on the hook for royalties for another 8.5 years.
Wow.
And so they would take the sales and say, let's say you're doing 10,000 a week and the royalties are 5%, so $500 a week. Not only did your restaurant fail, and you're probably going to you've blown your nest egg, or you owe the bank money. Now you owe the franchisor money. So whereas your risk at failure might be lessened by being in a franchise situation, if you do fail, the consequences of it are doubly tough from a financial standpoint.
Wow.
So it's but it's I love it. I don't think about that. You talk about being optimistic. I never think about it.
Right.
I never think about
Doesn't
it.
he seem like he looks like he's just an optimist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You can tell.
Yeah, and it's I tell people all the time, my livelihood, again, is like a coach who's, Mark Rick's livelihood depends on what a 18, 19-year-old does on a football field. My livelihood depends on what an 18 or 19-year-old does when they come into the restaurant. If they don't cook that chicken all the way through and somebody gets sick and it gets reported back that it's my restaurant, what happens? I'm out. All on what a 20-year-old did, who might have gone out the night before and is hungover and doesn't care about your business. So that's why we talk a lot in our business about our culture, to our company culture of how we do things. And the thing I'm most proud of is that our crew members and employees police themselves. they don't put up with anything anymore because they know that it's not tolerated. And so I don't do much of the hiring or firing anymore. They do it themselves.
So, I know the one downtown, the space is rented, just like you can't buy anything downtown.
Mhm.
But your other locations, are you renting that space? Did you?
I rent them all. I rent them all. And I've looked at purchasing. It's a different business model that I don't quite have my mind around yet. You know, if you buy and it fails, now you're stuck with an asset that might be considered underperforming in a bank's eyes. Now the advantages to it are you charge yourself rent and then you're getting it back. So you know, it's all on what your level of risk is, and again, what you're willing to invest into it. So I mean, again, I reference Zaxby's a lot, but that's their model. McDonald's. You know, if you really study McDonald's to find out what they are, they're a real estate company. They're not a restaurant. They're a real estate company that just happens to sell hamburgers. Because every town in America, where are they? They own the best street corner there is. But what do you think the value of that land is? So a lot of those guys, you know, it's a real estate play more than anything else. But you know, if you can walk away from it a little bit easier if you're renting or leasing.
Gotcha. How much time did you spend running your initial business?
I spent a lot of time, and I still have it too, believe it or not.
I'm glad to hear that.
I still have it, and it's interesting because I go back to it because in the, you know, and I never took a class at the small business development, but I got online and read and had a template of how to follow it, and so I did that.
Okay.
And you need it for the banks. If you go in there, you just walk in, hey, I need some money to start a restaurant. They're going to laugh at you. But if you go and you say, hey, here's my plan, you automatically have instant credibility. Whether it's a widget shop or whatever, running your own lawn mowing service, as long as you have a plan, you have a lot more credibility. But one of the things I said in my business plan is that I want to give back. I want to have the ability to give back to the community, both financially and from a charity standpoint. And my wife gets on to me all the time, and our business manager always gets on to me and says, do you know how much money you give away? And I said, well, look, this is why I do it. This is my first business plan. And, you know, when times are tough, and we've gone through tough times too, but I still go back to that first business plan of why I'm in business. Number one, to serve, but then number two, to give back to the community. So I'll always do that.
You know, a lot of the successful businesses, they do have a bigger purpose. You know, the ones that just say, oh, I just want to make money.
Yeah.
You know, that's not enough. I mean, you need a bigger purpose to really make, you know, for you to sacrifice and do all the things you do. So a lot of our successful business owners are just like that.
Yeah, I always think on the money side that if you're in it for the money, you're never going to make the money.
Yeah.
If you're in it for another reason, the money will follow.
The greater, yeah.
Yeah.
And you do it right and everything, yeah.
Mhm.
No, definitely. I can see how he got 100.
Right, I talk to a lot of guys or gals. People will call me up that want to get into one of the businesses that I'm in, which I always recommend because you know the federal government franchising is very highly regulated. So you have all these different requirements that the franchisor has to put out. You can't promise financial gain or anything like that. But the only part that the franchisor has to do is they have to give you the business owners that are in their model. And so the only way to really find out what it's like is to call those people. So some do and some don't, but I get called all the time. And you know, I'll ask them, I say, well, how are you going to run the business? Well, I'm going to hire a general manager. I said, you might as well drive down the highway, roll your window down, and just start chunking money out the window, because it's not going to work. Well, you know, I don't want to give up my CPA job, or I've got a successful insurance practice, or I know. whatever. I said, well, don't do it. You're going to lose your shirt. I mean, put the money in the stock market if you're, well, I just want to have a restaurant. Everybody thinks restaurants are so cool to have, which they are. They're awesome. I love it. My wife never has to cook. So, but, you know, it's a very risky proposition.
I'm so happy that there are a lot of people who love owning restaurants, because for me, I don't think, because I'm like, man, you gotta cook, you gotta
Yeah.
grocery shop, you gotta clean the kitchen.
Even when
stuff like that.
we have our family dinners. So Sundays for me now, I try not to do much on Sundays, but it still happens. I mean, we're almost 11 years into, almost however long into this thing. Since I opened up our restaurant, I hadn't had a day off in 45 days. But I love it. I don't mind it. And, you know, I'm missing some stuff with the kids and all that, but they get it. And what I hope I'm doing is showing my kids what it means to work. Because I think that's the greatest gift as you get older and start having a family, is being the father, husband, dad. You know, if you can leave your mark with your kids, that's the greatest thing there is. So, and they work. My it goes against child labor law, so this is a locker room conversation. Y'all know what I'm talking about. What's said in the locker room stays in the locker room. So, you know, he comes in and works, and I make him punch in and all that. And, you know, when I cut them a paycheck, I show them the taxes they're taking out, although it's illegal, but I just cut them the paycheck, and then we sit there, you know. But anyway, because I want them to understand, and he's 11, he's 12 now. You know, so I make $10 an hour. If I work 10 hours, I make $100. No, you're going to make 72, and here's why: because of this, and this. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Very good.
You said you had 2 flops. Indulge us.
Yeah. Well, my first one was called. Do you remember Shish Kebabs, man?
Yeah,
In Watkinsville.
that was what you turned into Barbaritos,
That's
right?
what I turned into Barbaritos.
Yes.
Yeah. So, the
Shish kebab.
quick story. Yeah. So, you know, this was in 2008. I've got 2 Barbaritos, and I'm thinking, man, I got this thing figured out. I don't want to pay royalties. You know, I do it better than they do it, and I can figure this out. So I had a manager who used to work for me at the 5 Points Bar Burritos approached me about an idea he had. He said, you know, would you want to go into business with me? And I'd always, in all of my corporations that I have, and that's a whole other conversation, is LLCs, S Corps, all that kind of stuff. So I'm the sole owner. I think my wife is in some of them, but basically I'm the sole proprietor, but I'm the S Corp and LLC. So anyway, I said, yeah, sure, I might want to see how this works with a partner. And we opened up and we started off great, and man, it just dropped like a rock. And we were about 4 or 5 months in, and then I started having to feed the beast with the profits from my other restaurants. And I finally pulled the plug, and we had borrowed money on it. And I remember we met at the Waffle House one morning. It was the Waffle House there on Epps Bridge, right in front of the Kroger. And it was the most bizarre scene, because Michael Adams, who was the president of UGA, and I'm sitting right next to us. He's there all the time, and I'm sitting here thinking, wow, how bizarre is this? I'm fixing to pull the plug on the business. I got the UGA president sitting right here. I wonder if he's listening to my conversation. But anyway, and I told him, I said, look, I'm going to give you an out. I said, I'll assume all the debt, but you give me the company. Why? What do you want to do? I said, well, I'm either A, we're folding and we're both on the hook, or B, I'm turning into a Bar Burritos. So I had an exit strategy in that. I was going to roll the dice and try it. But I learned more from that flop. I mean, what I learned from it was that although I had a partner, he was the operator and I was kind of the guy with the experience and whatnot. And I learned that nobody's going to operate it like you want it to be operated, or is willing to sacrifice like you are. I mean, he'd complain about the hours, and I never complain about hours. I mean, I love it. But he couldn't handle the grind. You know what I'm saying? And so, that was one. And then My other one really was more of a silent failure, but trying to make lemonade out of lemons, if you will. The Mirco's on the east side, so
Miracle?
yeah, I closed it down. And
Was it?
on the in Ansonboro, yeah. But see, I bought Mirco's back in 2009, and there was 2 existing ones in town, the one in Watkinsville and the one at Ansonboro. And so I had to buy the existing leases, and they were terrible leases. But I thought at the time, hey, I think I can make this business work. I would never structure my deals that way. So it was a 10-year lease, and the Miracle on the east side just wasn't doing it. So I'm on the hook for the lease. And so a guy approached me again about an idea, and I said, look, I'm not investing any money on it, but I'll give you the space, you can have the equipment, and we'll do your bookkeeping. That way I can keep an eye to make sure that he was doing things the right way. And so that Freshtopia opened up, and after the first month, man, his payroll was out of whack, and I'm sitting there saying, man, how you gonna pay these people? How you gonna pay your vendors? How you gonna do this? And he just finally went away. So I'm still on the hook for the lease and looking for somebody, another restaurant to come in since I closed it. But there's a lot more to the story on all the shell game that was played on that. So from a financial perspective, it's better to close it and still, I go back to the reputation. I'm never going to be that guy that'll just turn the keys into a landlord and say, hey, I'm not paying you anymore. I'll always pay you your rent, even if I'm not generating any income. And let's find a way out to figure it. So thank goodness we have a lot of restaurants now. But
The lesson learned there, and it's something I've seen over the years a lot, is business partnerships. You think marriage might be tough?
Yeah.
Business partnerships, whoa.
yeah.
I've seen more.
My wife tried working with me at Barbaritos the first couple weeks, and I'll never forget. We're slammed, and there's customers coming in. I'm rolling burritos, and she's running the cash register. Well, the job description for a cash register is they're also responsible for cleaning the dining room, and so I said, hey, honey, you mind going out there and cleaning the dining room? And she looked at me. She goes, well, why don't you go clean the dining room? I said, I'm trying to get food out here. I can't go down. And so I came on and I said, and she goes, I'm firing myself. I don't want to work with you. Good. I said, because I'd rather be married to you than work with you. So it was.
I've seen a lot of that. Sometimes I say that I need to change the sign on my door to, not Carol McDonald Business Consultant to Carol McDonald Marriage
Consultant. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another funny story. In the early days, so I was struggling with employees trying to, our business. Fortunately, we started off pretty good, and I didn't have enough employees. So my preacher's daughter had come in and wanted a job, and he brought her in. And I said, I don't know, because I didn't want to cross the line of my preacher's daughter working for me, because what if she doesn't work out? But we had 2 or 3 people that didn't show up, and I was desperate, so I called him. I said, hey, Billy, is your daughter still on the job? He said, yeah. I said, well, he said, when did she start? I said, tonight. So I didn't interview her or anything, and she was the worst, even to this day, the worst employee I've ever had. I mean, she was a statue back there behind the cash register, and wouldn't talk, wouldn't do anything. So I'm firing her. And so you can imagine the conversation with the preacher. And he wanted to know why I fired her. And so I told him, and I said, look, Bill, it's business, man. It's all, it's nothing personal. It's just business. So don't hire the preacher's daughter. That's the motto there. Don't hire your preacher's daughter. So,
Have you had any problems with, I had no problem with
yeah.
with death?
Yes. Yeah. We have it all. We have cameras in the stores now. But we have cost controls. If you're talking about employee theft or yeah, I'm probably naive when it comes to that, again, because I believe in our culture. And I've gotten burned. I mean, I could sit here and tell you story after story of being stolen from. The worst was Dunkin' Donuts on our east side location. A guy got me for about $2,000. It was on camera. Well, it wasn't on camera because he went in the office and he pushed the camera up while he got in the safe and took the money. He said, well, you didn't see me do it. I said, well, I could see when the manager was in there, the camera goes up. 20 minutes later, she comes back because we have 8 different camera angles that you can see. So that was pretty tough because I was trying to roll the dice. I knew he had a bad background, just had a rough life, and I thought if I brought him into our culture that I could change him. I can't. And even, I've got a lot of good friends that are with Athens Clark County Police, and they even told me, they said, Weeks, you're crazy. We know this guy, he's got a rap sheet a mile long, don't do it. I said, no, I can do it. I know I can. I know I can just get him in with us. Yeah, but we do things like every shift an employee works, they get a free meal. They get discounts when they come in. We try to take care of them and treat them right. I don't want minimum wage employees. We started by offering minimum wage, but if you hadn't gotten a raise in the first month, time for you to start looking for another job. Because that's what we tell them, is that this is your trial run. We're going to bump you up, and we're proud of the fact that we pay more than the average restaurant does, but we expect a lot more. And if you can buy into that, we'll have a nice relationship. But if you can't, and everyone's, we're opening new restaurants, I mean, you make mistakes a lot, but you got to have a quick trigger finger. Very quick trigger finger. One of my employees, actually, one of my managers, he said something that's been profound to me, and I keep reminding him of this. We were at a manager's meeting one time, and we were talking about our strengths and weaknesses, and he said, well, I think our weakness is that we hold on to people too long. And I was like, so now I always remind him of that. Whenever he needs to fire someone, I'm like, you gotta take your advice there, big boy. So.
Yeah, we run into that all the time with people. Yeah, I get clients that complain about things like, well, but they always say, hire slow, make sure you know them and find the right fit in your culture.
Right.
That's really,
right.
But fire fast.
Yeah.
Don't drag it out.
Or hire tough
Yeah.
and manage easy.
Yeah. But,
Make it.
And when they have finally gotten to the point where they have fired the person, they're it was such a relief. It's like, why didn't I do that sooner? But it's hard.
And people, when you fire that person, people will fill the void.
Yeah.
Because that person might have they might have been the ceiling that all your other employees were jumping up against. They just couldn't get any better. But once that person's gone, everybody.
And often it actually, they were wondering why you hadn't done it sooner, and really, they're so much happier. Like, oh, finally, because they could be a very toxic presence.
How do you deal with employment and scheduling with, I guess, in terms of insurance and things like that?
Oh, like healthcare?
Right.
See, that's going to be kicking in next year for us.
Yeah.
And, they're still kind of debating what the threshold is. Is it 30 hours? Is it 35 hours? That's one of those, I try to control the controllables. That's an uncontrollable that I can't do anything about. Once they come out with the ruling, we might adjust. We've always offered health care. A lot of, and that's the thing that I think the politicians don't understand, is that a lot of people that are in the $10 to $12 an hour range, they don't want to pay for health care. They'd rather roll the dice on it. And then in our situation, we have a lot of younger folks that work with us. They don't want it.
A lot of them are still under their parents.
A lot of them are still under their parents. So,
So what do you do in situations like that? If an employee is above that threshold and they are currently insured?
and they're currently insured?
Like through their parents?
Yeah, they have to file. So we have,
An exclusion document or something?
yeah, we have all the documentation where, I'll give you a story on that. One of our managers, when it all came out and the exchange came out with the healthcare, we had him sign a document saying that he was offered healthcare but declined it. He signed it, then he goes out to the exchange and he got his own healthcare. But then he realized that because he had signed this document saying that we had offered it to him, but he declined it, that his rate was going to be higher on the exchange. And he came back to us and he's saying, well, y'all, you didn't tell me that. I said, what are you talking about, man? It's in the document. I gave you the document, told you to review it. I can lead the horse to water. I'm not going to force your head down to drink it. And so he created a big stink about it and all that. That's when we educated him on what was going on. So, man, you can get on our plan, or or you can do this, and he decided to go, his rate really was better on the exchange, trying to get it, but rather than being on ours. But that's 1 out of 200. But everybody has signed it, saying that they were offered it. The ones that, it's 30 hours right now, I believe, so everybody that works over 30 hours has signed it. And
That was like 25 or something.
no, and see, that's what a lot of companies, the Walmarts of the world, they were going to just say, and this is what, again, the politicians don't understand, the companies are going to they're going to try to protect the bottom line.
Mhm.
So now they're going to tell these hourly employees, you can only work 30 hours. So now they're not going to be making enough money. So, we also, I don't ever talk politics or religion. You'll never know where I stand on that because everybody's my customer. And, I don't care whether you're black, white, red, green, Asian, whatever, homosexual, Baptist, Jewish, whatever. I don't care. As long as because the only color I care about is green. You're going to pay. We're going to serve you. We're going to do the best we can to do it. So, I don't care. We're friends with everybody. We like everybody. And we try to do that within our company with all of our employees. But, I try to tell them, this is what you need to know, who you're voting for. You need to understand politics. You need to understand what this healthcare means to you. Because my thought is it hurts the people it's trying to help. Because the business is going to eliminate hours, so you're not going to have, and it's the whole thing with minimum wage.
But so many small businesses, I think it's below 50 employees, it doesn't even affect them. But they're
Right.
all kind of up hearing all this stuff and getting all worked up about it.
Oh,
It's
so
like,
it's for people under 50 employees.
that's what I'm saying. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what we've done too is, we have all the different companies.
Split up.
But the politicians come back and say there's common ownership.
Yeah. They're getting
So it doesn't do me any good because now I'm a common owner.
You're common, yeah.
Because Walmart just had that like 7% or something like that. They more than else.
Yeah, most of the small business owners don't have enough employees to
Unless you start
but I mean, once you start having as many, restaurants as
Right.
then, then those employees add up.
Mhm.
So,
It does.
You're hiring.
We're always hiring. Always hiring. Yeah, we do. And you talk about scheduling too. I'll make one more point on that. We always try to have more people on staff than there are shifts for, because then we tell them competition. If you're the best, you get first dibs of the shift. And if you're not, and you're only, I tell all of our guys that if you want 4 shifts a week, you only get 3. If you want 5 shifts a week, you only get 4. You got to earn it. It's competition.
I didn't work at a couple of businesses just to see how it is. 'Cause
Yeah.
once he was talking about starting it, he was like, "You should work here and see how it is."
Right.
I'm in crop fair, a lot of the
Yeah.
users, and the way you've been, like, the way I hear you're doing it is like excellent.
And I'm a student of the restaurant, and I love it. I just love it. So I'm a geek. I subscribe to the nation's restaurant news. I'm into all the stats. I'm into what's hot, what's not, whether I'm going to do it or not. But you try to learn. So, you were talking about that to come work for y'all, you have to have an MBA. Well, I don't have an MBA, but I'm studying like I'm an MBA because I'm studying my industry. And I'm trying to do best practices. I make mistakes every day. I never think I know it all. It was funny, I was with our business manager, a couple managers this morning, and we were sitting there talking, and she said that she was trying to talk to somebody who's interested in buying some equipment from us. And she said, this guy was just a sleazy restaurant guy. He's a typical restaurant guy. And I said,
Did you get offended?
no, I didn't. I said, good, because I'm not one of those guys. I'm not a restaurant guy, but I just love the industry, and we try to do things a little different. But again, it all goes back to the lessons I learned on the football field and from my coaches. So.